Hello, hello. Welcome to She2She with Sharice and Tashima. Two women sharing real life experiences, the joys, the valleys, and finding hope. We want to inspire and empower and let you know you are not alone.
Welcome to She2She for another conversation with Tashima and Sharice. So today's topic is going to be talking about bravery in the face of your goals and dreams. So let's get into it, Sharice.
Yeah. Woo-hoo. So this is a topic that kind of goes back for me because, I have, you have like moments where you've had conversations with someone and they said something that stuck with you forever. That's kind of where I'm coming from in this episode because I had that one person that said, Sharice, go be brave, go be brave. And I'll tell you about this story. And it kind of goes back to, when I'm coming up in the world, and, you have aspirations of that promotion on the job. And so what happened was, just to give you a slight backstory, I won't go into detail because I think that's perfect for another topic. But, I spent 20 years at this one company, and my early years, I did several jobs, did different things, added on to my experience. You have to have some experiences under your belt to prepare you for whatever it is to come. And in this one particular instance, I always wanted to have a position in human resources. It was always like the job that I felt like, wow, important things happen right behind closed doors. They have, whatever conversations they're having, they're talking about, promotions and, company planning and all of that, and hiring and all of that. And I had already dabbled in a little bit of those responsibilities, even though it was beyond my job description. But basically, this one particular instance, a job came up, right? It was posted internally in the company, and I saw the position, and I'm like looking at the job description, and I'm like, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that. I've touched this, and have a little bit of experience here. And I said, well, let me go share it with my boss, my then boss, right? Because that meant actually I would be stepping out and leaving her, but stepping out into another part of the company. And so I went to talk to her, and thankfully I worked for a company that they actually loved it when they could, kind of support your growth and see you off to the next level. And I'm so grateful that I was aligned with a company that wasn't like hoarders, we called it, right? Don't hoard talent. If you're going to develop and cultivate your folks, that's a testament of your leadership, right? And so seeing that person off was always a celebratory moment. So I was able to share it with my boss then. And she's like, Sharice, you could do this. Like, you could totally do this. Now, at the same time, I was afraid, and I was just like, I could do it. But, this was a position that sat in corporate. So it was at the top of the house, as we say, working with our chiefs, right? And so this particular position was supporting the chief finance officers, his organization, which is globally, so over 1,000 employees. And so I would be sitting in that position, entry level human resources. And so, so I went ahead and went after it, interviewed for it. And the person who I was going to be working with, who would be my boss, she interviewed me a couple times for this position. Okay, she interviewed me the first time, she grilled me, she asked me about my experiences and all of that, and I spoke exactly what it was. And so didn't hear back for a couple of weeks, and then she wanted to see me again. And I think what she was really trying to drive home was that this position actually was more than what was on that paper, right? It was more than that job description. It was actually bigger than I thought. And she wanted to make sure I understood that, you're going to get 100 emails a day, and you're going to have stakeholders that want things like at the drop of a dime, and you got to be ready, and your mistakes are truly visible, right? So if you're supporting the people that run this company of 40,000 people at that time, that's a big job, right? So all of those, moments with her, interviews with her, really made me more nervous as I met with her. And then I met with the senior vice president in human resources, and she was also a senior vice president. So I'm meeting with all these people, and I got more scared, more afraid. And my boss at that time was like, be brave, right? Be brave. And so I say all that to say that I went into that position. I was hired for it, entry level. And yes, it was way bigger than my experiences were. So I had to learn a lot. And, but it was a moment where I realized, wow, I didn't have all these skills and experiences. And there were actually people that she was interviewing who had experience in human resources from other companies that had done really, big things, but yet she chose me because there was something in me, my skill set and all of that was very diverse, that just made her feel like she was making the better choice. And thankfully she did confirm that. She's like, She2She, you were the best decision I ever made. But I say all that to say that that was a moment where I had to be brave because I didn't have a roadmap, right? I didn't have, anyone in my family who I could lean to and say, how do I grow in corporate? How do I achieve that next level? How do I go after? And it really took a huge step of bravery in that situation.
And that
I don't know about you, but
yeah. And so I think bravery, in my story, so I many times along your life, right? You have these brave moments, but I think you physically feel the fear of, hey, I need to be brave in this instance. And I mean, it can take a toll on you, like your stomach, it can be upset, you can start sweating, but you know that you have to be brave in a moment that you're faced with. Like it can literally make you stop in your tracks, right?
Oh
and
my
so
God.
it really can make you stop in your tracks because you start getting nervous because you have this mountain to overcome. It makes you're fearful of whatever it is, maybe the outcome, maybe the person, how they're going to react to whatever it is that you have to tell them. But those are moments of still fear that you have to be brave in and kind of walk through. You have to walk through that fear, and I think that is a part of it. And like you said, not knowing in your situation about just what you were walking into, and having her take the time to kind of make sure that you were the right candidate for that role. But I think we do that in all aspects of our lives when we're faced with a challenge, and we have to be brave in it.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I have one Bible verse that I go to when I need to be brave, right? And I'm going to read that for you in the audience as well. And it says, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. And so I've used that many times when, I've had some scenarios in the last 3 years that I had to be brave in, right? And so I've read that like right before the scenario happened, or whatever it is, like I really relied on that verse to help me. And what stood out to me is, do not be dismayed, right? Because you can use that negative talk, you could use what you think is going to happen to stop you from continuing on the journey. So
oh my gosh, right? I know, here we go again with creating the stories, creating that narrative, and it always starts out negative, right? Because it's like the fear that we have is so deeply embedded in our subconscious mind that we lead with it. So we're already thinking about, oh my gosh, what if I do that and this happens?
yes.
Well, that hasn't happened, my dear. So
what if it does, right? So even what if
but those are
it does?
Stories. It's like, okay, you want to go out and craft a movie script about that's where you do that. But when we do that in our own lives, we are conjuring up the narrative that hasn't happened. So imagine if I had not, right? I was so paralyzed by that fear. When I saw that job description, I was like, yeah, I want to, but if I do take it and I mess up, I'll probably get fired, and I won't have a job, and blah, 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 right? But the fact that I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And at that level, stepping into that doing, right? Stepping out of the box of fear, brought me to a level that I didn't even imagine myself going. The outcome of that became, She2She, you were promoted from this entry-level position in human resources where you felt like an imposter, you felt like a fish out of water.
Yeah.
You didn't have the backing of family and friends to coach you on how to be an African-American woman growing in corporate, in the business world. You didn't have any of that. But the fact that you took a chance and you did it is a testament of, look at God showing up in our lives, right? And having the faith that we talked about, right? So we can't have faith and then talk about, well, what if? We can't do that, right? So we have to lead with, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And so I did it, got promoted a couple times, ended up making more money than I imagined myself making at that point in my life. And look. So then we can look back and say, thank God I stepped out, right? And thank God I was afraid and I had all that anxiety in those meetings in that big old fancy boardroom.
But I think also in that, right? So you talk about the fear of trying to be brave in a situation. I think a lot of times also God will allow things to happen, and it's a lesson teacher, right? So if you don't learn that lesson or you're not brave in that particular moment, it will come back around. And it will come back around, and it will come back around until you walk through it. And part, it's because it's the lesson in it is it makes you stronger when you come out of it, right? All the fear again that we talked about in prior podcasts doesn't really exist, right? So we talk about that fear that's there. We talk about the physical changes, that fear of moving forward and stepping out on faith. You really have to, like you said, you talk about what the outcome of it, right? So the outcome of you doing that's the same thing. If we don't be obedient and walk through that fear, the outcome of the result of us doing that is amazing, because you become stronger, right? You look back and you're like, okay, I did that. Like, even in my fear, even I was brave. So that's the bravery in it, is the strength to navigate yourself through it.
Exactly. And in doing so, navigating and because it's not saying, oh, you can't have fear in order to have courage and bravery. You're going to have that. The key is that you do it anyway, right? Do it anyway, because yes, did I make mistakes on that job? Yes, I did, honey. Was I perfect in everything? Was I everything that I was faced with on a day-to-day? Did I have all the answers? I did not. But thankfully, through experience and putting myself in those moments and situations, was able to garner the strength, the understanding, the experience, all of the other things that I didn't have stepping into that job was added onto me, because I did it. I stepped forward and I kept stepping forward deeper into it. So then therefore the knowledge and the know-how came, and it served, and it blessed me, and it blessed my family. So you think about, okay, again, we go back to the, why do you want to do it? What's your why? And think about the fact that ask yourself, if I don't do it, what am I going to give up? Right? Because you're giving up some stuff, some serious stuff, when you don't act. So I'm telling you, like, you have to do it regardless of how you feel. We as humans feel all kinds of things. From day to day. Time. But you can't lead with those feelings, because those feelings they stem from one place, right? And usually it is fear. So we can get tripped up all the time.
Yeah, and you come out stronger. And I think that is the lesson teacher in being brave in the presence of fear, right? So like you talked about, keep moving forward and doing it in spite of, right? So it's the strength that the outcome, even if the outcome happens the exact same way that you probably imagine in your brain. So say if it's not a positive outcome, you still acted on it. You still stepped through it, right? So you're still learning. When it shows up again, you know how to get through it, right?
Exactly.
You'll lean on, hey, but I did this before, right? So that's going to give you the momentum to keep moving. And so that's what happens. Yes.
Thank you. The key word, like you said, is momentum, because I think when you show yourself something different that you've never done and you start challenging your inner self, challenging those negative thoughts, then you become more braver. And yes, you're still going to be fearful of some of that next stuff, but you'll be even more braver, and it won't take you as long to take those next leaps, because now you've gotten the experience of moving forward on your behalf, right? Like for your benefit, right? So yeah, I mean, sometimes too, we get caught up in the next person, right? The people around us. So wow, that person looks really successful and they have X, Y, and Z, whether it's the family life that you want or the career, the whatever. We look at them and we measure ourselves, right? So our failures, maybe we failed some before, but we measure ourselves relative to the experience of someone else. So then we become, in our minds, less than. So sometimes that keeps us from taking that step forward.
Keeps us stagnant.
My old boss used to say, never count the tiles on someone else's ceiling, right? Because you know how some folks are like, I want that big corner office and they're making more money than me and da, 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 da. No. Stay in your lane, honey. Mind your own business. Mind your own business. And I mean that in every sense, literally and figuratively, because when you stay focused on you, maybe you're not quite ready for that next leap. Maybe you have a lot of the experience, but maybe you're missing something. So number one, you have to be open to the idea that you don't have everything, but therefore you keep moving forward anyway. You keep moving forward and putting yourself in situations that give you the elevated experience so that you're meeting the moment when it arrives. When I got that promotion, let me explain, I didn't have my college degree yet. Okay. It took me 11 years to get my bachelor's. Okay. When I graduated high school, I got a certificate program. I went to a 9 months program and I got an office job that gave me, I don't know, $10, $12 an hour back in the 90s. And I was not prepared for that level. I didn't know where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do with my life, but I started from where I started, right? But once I got more clearer about where I wanted to go, I started to realize, okay, when I'm in this office job, I'm like, wow, I want that job. I started to zone in on what I wanted. And so I started to put myself in situations that allowed me to get skills without even the paycheck, honey. I was literally like working, making whatever I was making, but I was like, let me help you do that. Let me help this department do this. And let me help them do that. And I was able to form relationships that gave me the experience that that job description had that allowed me to get where I ended up going. So you can't always go after the money. You have to go after, what do I need to prepare for the next thing? Because it's opportunity meeting that moment. You have to be prepared for preparation meeting the opportunity. That is real life. And a week before I got the job, the promotion, went over into corporate, and then 2 weeks later, I walked with my degree. So you see how it was all like everything was, all the preparation I had worked hard on in the past led me to that moment, and there we were, So it's amazing how life works, but we have to remember to stay out of our way and just think of living in a box as a virus. I mean, we're talking about, we're in a pandemic right now. That's another whole pandemic. Fear is another whole pandemic that's been plaguing us since the beginning of time.
Yes, it has. And it's interesting that you said, in terms of not kind of, looking at someone else and counting the towel, their towels, which is a great analogy. I'm going to use that one. But, it's, you don't know what the person did to get there.
That's right.
Right. So you don't know what they had to experience. You haven't walked in their shoes. So when you're looking at someone and kind of admiring them or envying what they have, and that's causing you to have fear in moving towards your goals and your dreams, or conquering some type of hill that you have to climb, so you don't know what that person had to experience to get there. And we have our own personal journey. we have our own personal journey that we must navigate through. And that's where I talked about, those lessons learned. So being brave is a scary thing, but it is for our development, your own personal development, right? So for whatever journey lies ahead for you. So those moments are going to keep showing up because you have a lesson to learn in them. You have a lesson to navigate through them because it's going to make you stronger for the next one and the next one, So that's what I've learned in my personal journey. There have been moments when I tell you and I tell you. Like the fear of having conversations, difficult conversations with people, not necessarily, trying to attain something, but having difficult conversations that you don't know how that person is going to react. You don't know what's going to be said. You know that it's challenging, and you play it out in your mind about how things are going to happen. And even if it happens, the worst case scenario, you took the first step of having the conversation or moving towards it. And that's the most important thing in being brave. There's no 3-step plan on how to, be brave. It isn't, because you're just going to act in it. That's what bravery is. It's an act. It's an action.
Right. Oh my gosh. I love how you say that. It is very much an action that we have to be comfortable with and ask ourselves, like, what's the alternative to it, right? And are we okay with the alternative? Obviously, it's not taking action, but then what are the catastrophic events or sequence of events, or who does it impact? There's something to be said for that. So I think we need to be less comfortable with not taking action and more comfortable with go ahead and being brave, honey, because you can do it. Like, you got it. All you have to do is just step forward, and then everything that you want and need, your needs will be met. It'll be added because you are taking this step and you're meeting, in the middle, right? The Lord is adding to you as he sees you moving forward, because you're moving forward in your assignment and you're being brave doing it. I mean, as I mentioned, not, being a African-American coming up, where, in that corporate or business world, it could be very uncomfortable just in that in itself. And then when you start to think about, well, gee, I don't think I'm as smart enough as even the people that I'm hiring. I'm in human resources, right? We're going out and we're hiring like the best of the best out there on campuses. And sometimes we find ourselves comparing ourselves to the next person, and that is like derailing in itself, as we talked about that last week. Like, don't let that derail you, because you are your own. And that's what I've learned in the past year or so, that I am my own competition.
Yes.
Like, if you just keep that in your mind and remind yourself, remember, just like we go to the gym and we work out to build muscle, we have to keep working our brains into realizing that, or, repetitively of understanding, like, forget the negative self-talk. No, Cherise, it's not the external people or groups that are keeping you from your blessing, believe it or not. People say that. I see a lot of posts on social media, and it drives me crazy about, that stuff that people post. But I'm like, no, we look at yourself. Like, you are the one that is stopping you from getting to the next level, believe it or not. So when you realize you're your own competition, then you're like, you know what? If I don't go ahead and do this assignment, I can't blame nobody but me. That other person didn't stop me from getting it. I stopped myself, So it's just realization of who the buck stops with us individually, right?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah. So I love this chat because, it just reminds us that we are all, we could do anything we want. It's just that we just need to believe it. And even if you don't have it all figured out, it's okay. That's the beauty of it. It's okay.
Yeah.
We have to be okay with that, because we want to go ahead and write the whole narrative. Remember how we like to conjure up the stories? Well, we want to be able to write the whole narrative, but we can't. We just have to move forward. Yes, we're going to make mistakes, but those mistakes and the failures in those mistakes are going to make you stronger and teach you lessons if you're listening and looking out for them. Like you said, you can keep bumping your head against that wall,
Yep.
You know, when you're
Yes.
not learning those lessons, it's going to come right back around and around and around until you figure out the lessons in them. But if you're listening and looking out for the lessons in those moments, then that's where you start to garner the experience to get over the hump of each of those lessons.
Yeah, to encounter those moments with bravery, right? So I think that is it. And it's because there's something inside of you, right? There's something when people say, oh, that person was brave, it was something inside of them. And we all encounter those moments. There's something inside of you that will propel you and push you to move through that fear and be brave in whatever situation, whatever conversation, whatever dream or goal that you have. It will give you the momentum to come through it. And on the other side of that thing, you are going to garner enough strength to, when it pops up again, you're going to look back, grab that same strength that you had before and pull it along to the next one. Like it really is. That is what bravery is. It
Absolutely.
is action. Yeah, it is action.
Absolutely.
It is action.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I love everything you said, my dear. It's so true. So we encourage you all who are listening and watching, be encouraged by this, remove the negative narratives, the stories that we grow so accustomed to repeating about ourselves in the world, right? So, look at yourself from a healthier lens and not what people have told you, oh, you're not good enough, or, even the stories we tell ourselves, which is, it seems so minor, but, oh, I'm not a morning person. I'm just not. Well, like we put all of these labels, these ridiculous labels. I'm guilty of it sometimes too, but the bottom line is you are good enough. Don't ever feel like you have to stay within this mold. Maybe you have a certain circle of people that you run with, right? And you feel like, gee, if I step outside of this circle, I won't be accepted and people will think I'm trying to be better, or whatever that story bull crap is. You have got to listen. Like that ain't, that's not where it's at. So whatever the stories are you're telling yourself, you have to rid yourself of it. Like I said, like a muscle that you're building in the gym, you have to work that muscle every day in your mind, because sometimes even me, I run up against fearful things like on a day-to-day sometimes. And I have to say, oh, Cherise, like I literally sometimes almost finding myself falling prey to those situations. And I'm up against one thing right now. When I get over it, I'll share it, but I am working my way through it. But I recognize it. See, the key is recognizing it, knowing, oh yeah, Cherise, that's a fear. Why is that a fear? Well, work through it, get over it, and don't let it conquer you. So I'm working through something right now. I'm human, right?
Yes,
but I know I am not falling prey to this situation. But anyway.
Yes, we all are, and I struggle with it too. I know I have some brave moments that are coming very soon that I'm going to have to walk through. I know it. I can feel it, right? And the reason I know it is because I've tried to avoid the situation, but it still keeps coming back. So when I say that, I'm talking from experience. I know it's going to come back, but I know God has a lesson for me. He's going to say, no, you think you're going to get out of that quick? No, it's coming back. It's coming back. And I know it. And so, and what I tell myself is, yes, you can do this. Why? Because he brought you along before. That strength that he says, I will uphold you with my right hand. So that again will be my carrier as I go through it, is that theme of I'm not in it by myself. And we want you to know that you're not in it alone as well, by yourself. We hope that this, encourage you to be brave in whatever it is that, you are facing in your life. You got this, you can do this, you will come through it and be much stronger.
Yeah, so go do it. And you know what? Share your experiences with us. Comment, let us know, share something that you've been brave about, in your past and what you're proud of. Because those moments, when we remind ourselves, sometimes we dumb down or we make things insignificant, those moments, but they're really not. They're actually they really serve as launching pads to the next thing for you. But share those experiences with us, because we love to, we want to feel like we're not the only ones, right, Tashima?
Yes, we want to connect with those viewers, you know, whether on Instagram, Facebook, you know, YouTube. We want to interact with you and know what are the brave things in your life that you've overcome, and how did you do that?
Yeah. And especially on the side note, if you have children, right? Our children are watching us. They're watching us.
Yeah.
And when we can exhibit the bravery in our own lives, that becomes contagious in their lives. And it gives them the want to mimic us. Okay. So they're mimicking when we're not brave. And they could also be mimicking, though, when we are brave. So we want to, it's not enough to just tell our kids, go be brave. It has to show up in our own lives. And so go ahead and do that thing, y'all. Go ahead and do it.
So thank you for joining us today and talking about bravery in the face of your goals and dreams. Thank you for joining She2She podcast. As always, be you, be loved, be blessed, and be the diamond that you are.